Let's call to order this special city council meeting for January 16, 2024. Sarah, if we can have roll call, please.
Sure. Councilor Ritma.
Here.
Councilor Caswell.
Here.
Councilor One.
Here.
Councilor White.
Here.
Councilor Wittrin.
Present.
Councilor Glantz.
Present.
And Mayor Lauer.
Here. Thank you very much. All right, let's open up public comment. Public comment on non-agenda and consent agenda items is welcome at this time. Public comment on agenda items will be taken at the time the item is considered. Public comment should be directed to the presiding officer and limited to matters of community interest or related to matters which may or could come before council. Each speaker shall be limited to 5 minutes for each agenda item unless a different amount of time is allowed by the presiding officer with consent of the council. The council and mayor should avoid immediate or protracted responses to citizen comments. If there's anybody wishing to make citizen comment to the city council, now is the time. Go ahead and raise your hand. Unmute yourself. I'll call on you and we'll have you state your name and city of residence for the record. All right. Not seeing anybody. I'm going to close public comment. So we'll move on to agenda item number 3, a resolution reconstituting the ad hoc public safety services delivery working group. Mr. Ray Young, you got the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to actually talk about 3 and 4 because 3 and 4 are related, and both of them came out of last week's council meeting. Not to go ahead and rehash all ground that we did last Tuesday or everything that we know already about our 2 contracts, one for law enforcement with Multnomah County Sheriffs and fire with Gresham, but we are now just slightly less than 18 months from those 2 contracts expiring, and we need to figure out what's best for the city in terms of those 2 very important services that are provided by other government agencies. So on the law enforcement process, well, let me back up here. The council discussed and decided last week that it was a good idea to split the 2 endeavors and the 2 contracts in terms of the steps that we would take for a couple of reasons. One, they are in many ways fundamentally different. The law enforcement contract is relatively straightforward in terms of it's a service that is provided that can be defined by FTEs, people on the street, and how control is done, while fire is one that it responds to calls for service and is based upon need. The second reason to split them was speed. This way, if we have generally 2 formats, 2 bodies proceeding to begin doing the real practical steps of what we need to know to make some good decisions, it's probably best to have those divided into 2 different bodies. And so the first resolution, item number 3, is the law enforcement process of doing some actual practical steps to get information. And the council decided to reconstitute the public safety service delivery working group that had worked on the recommendations last fall. And then within that resolution, you will see that I have placed specific action steps for them to take and investigations to do to start getting the information that we need to begin to either, 1, negotiate with other providers for law enforcement, or to determine the practicality and feasibility of reconstituting the Troutdale Police Department. So for the that item, Mayor, the resolution, I think I've tried to lay out exactly what the council indicated last week. They wanted that public safety working group to do. So that's what that first resolution covers.
Any comments from council? Councilor Glantz.
Yeah, the more I look at this, the more I'm not sure it's a good idea to split them. They're interdependent in terms of financing. And there's also something that might be gained if we look to Gresham to provide both police and fire in terms of getting a little bit better bang for the buck kind of a deal. And the other thing that concerns me a little bit as I read through this is only Counselor Ritma and Counselor One are assured of still being here when this actually happens. Everybody else is up for re-election. So I would at least hope if we do keep two, that we split 3 counselors, so it's not the same people doing the same thing. One on working on fire and one working on police, but I'm not convinced it's a good idea to split them. And I'm also, the optics of doing this behind closed doors don't make me comfortable at all. I mean, there's no reason we can't have special council meetings when things come up for negotiation. And this would be in 25, so it would be a different group of people. Just my comments.
Ray, go ahead.
I would just add that the resolution on fire was written very carefully with Ed's input to make sure that it wasn't a elective body making decisions. They were simply going to be advising staff to work through the issues regarding fire. And that is also to make sure nothing was done in the dark, that every single month council would get an update on exactly what was going on both of these endeavors, so that we made sure that we try to keep everything above board. And then, it's hard for me at this moment to describe. Actually, the fire service issue and the police issues are different in some ways, because with a fire issue, we've got the whole fire district equation to discuss also, which is a political decision. And then the issue of working with Gresham for police. Generally, we have not felt that was a great idea, since we're already partnering with them on our inspection, building inspection and plan review. And with fire, it would be I think we'd be putting all our eggs in one basket if we got true thinking that they might be a viable option. We'll ask them, of course, for a bid, like we will with Multnomah County Sheriff. But as we heard from the meetings last fall, Gresham police spend a lot of time going to the west side of the district because of the issues for 190th West, that sometimes that pulls from the other districts. And if we were one of their districts, we might lose in that regard. So I think that's kind of the reasons that we probably wanted to keep them separate. And the other thing was, is people were thinking about, if we just had one group doing both at the same time, that would make for a lot of hours, a lot of meetings, and a lot of burdens on one group. So that was what I recall last week council talked about. So anyway.
Counselor One.
Yeah, I just wanted to reemphasize that I was under the understanding when we discussed this that these groups would only be a fact-finding mission. There's no decisions that were going to be made, no contracts were going to be drawn up whatsoever in that. And I think it's very important that we have not one group looking at 2 very separate issues and able to take in all that information and report back to the council as a whole to give really good, clear, quality information to us, so that we, or whoever is in the council at the time, can make the best educated decision that's going to be the best for the whole of the city. So, and if I'm wrong on any of my thoughts, that these groups are going to be doing something different other than just, getting information to present to the council, I'm willing to take a step back. But I was pretty sure that's what we had discussed and what each group would do. No decisions would be made from a singular group.
Correct. In a simple way of looking at it, they are 2 separate fact-finding missions with the task of gathering information and bringing back information to council to then make a decision as a governing body together. I will say, though, that Councilor Glantz brings up a good point about Councilor One and Council President Ritma being the only counselors who are guaranteed to be on council after these discussions. I agree that it would be a good idea to split the 2 of you and put one of you on each of those committees, so that way we have that legacy moving through this council and what the next council could look like after the upcoming election. I think that's a good idea, and I think that's a good plan moving forward. That way, when it does when this council, if it changes, when it changes, then we have that information moving forward through on to the next council. And then that next council can take that decision to move forward. I think that's a good idea, and I think that's a good plan moving forward.
Yeah, can I just say one more thing? I think that I agree with you, and I agree with Councilor Glantz on that concern, but I would sure hope that we that these fact-finding groups are not still talking a year from now. And if that's the case, then I feel like we have not done our job as council members, and we would be so far behind the ball that I just feel like, man, everybody should put our heads on a stake and say, like, we need, this wouldn't be good leadership, is what I'm saying. So hopefully we would not be having these groups still available. We would be making decisions or have already made a decision.
Yeah, I agree with you on that as well. I think and I'll let Councilor Glantz here speak. She rose her hand. I think the point of it is, we know that the decisions that we need to make aren't going to be made easily within the next year. We can gather information to guide us through those next decisions, through the next contract negotiation, if that's the route we take. But if we decide to go anywhere else within our own city's abilities of creating emergency services or fire district or a joint 3-city mission, that's going to go further than 2024 and 2020, possibly 2025. So I believe the heart of that comment was, this could continue. We'll have a good session here this year, figure out some answers and guide, and to help guide us moving forward. But I think the decision is going to be, the end goal of the decision is going to take a while, and not something that's going to be finished by the end of 2024. I believe that's more of the reason behind the comment. But Councilor Glantz, go ahead and speak for yourself.
To Councilor One's point, being able to go back and look at some of the public safety groups, meetings, and understand things in context is great. Not being able to do that and having no one that was in the room at the time makes for a far more difficult perspective. I mean, you can't just in 2 pages capture what was happening over an hour or two, which is part of my concern with having those be non-recorded and not public.
Council President Rima.
Yes, the Public Safety Services Delivery Working Group was originally set up to study law enforcement and fire services in Troutdale. And our discussion at the last council meeting raised the issue of whether they would be able to, and so they've got some background in studying both. And what persuaded me was a couple of you, I think Randy, you commented that would be too much of a burden for them, and that was persuasive for me. But I would be interested in hearing from Tanny or anybody else who's on that committee whether they think they could continue to handle law enforcement, looking into law enforcement and fire both. That's what they've been doing. That's what they were constituted to do. I would, if they were willing to take it on and thought they could, I'm reluctant to have a subcommittee of the council engage with staff in a direction of something this important. It just worries me, having just a subset of the council, even if especially not in public meetings. So, Randy, I wonder if we could hear from the Public Safety Services Delivery Working Group before we go any further.
Yeah, for sure. And I just want to reemphasize and I'm sure that Mr. Wilcox can tell me exactly the words that I used, but I don't think I said it was too much for them to handle. I believe what I said was it was a lot of information coming in all at once. And the goal for splitting the two was that it was going to allow each group to hyper focus on one task, one section of that emergency services, and to accomplish that at the same time to save on time so we could get more done at the same time instead of spreading it out across multiple meetings. I think if you ask Tanny and everybody else on the public safety working group, they'll tell you that they would be honored to take it all on. And I'm not saying that they can't. I'm just saying that this would allow us an opportunity to hyper focus on one instead of all the deluge of information that comes when we're looking at both at the same time. Mr. Rich Allen.
Sorry, I had to unmute there. I'll go ahead and start video as well. So what I want to say is that this suggestion to separate them did not come from the committee. And I got to say that for fire and for police, they share a common financial aspect. So like many of you, you know that I'm involved in not only our own community, but the communities around us. And I got to tell you, we don't, as government, we do not have the trust of our citizenry. There's been some things that have happened in the recent past that they remember. And if our first move is to take this out of citizen involvement, that does not set a good signal. And I think that we will only face headwinds should this come down to election, and we haven't engaged and answered some of the concerns of our citizenry in prior. So I just want to point that out, that I think what we're about to do, or the direction we're headed in separating them, is going to make it harder, not easier, both in figuring out what to do and in implementing whatever's decided.
Mr. Ray Young.
Yeah, that's very important, Rich, to remember. But we also remember what Jeffrey was saying earlier, Counselor One was saying earlier. These committees are simply trying to come up with, as quickly as possible, information so that the council and the citizenry can make decisions. It's informational gathering, recommendations, information's on, basically a menu for law enforcement. What size force should we have? What size contract should we have? And what services they provide, so that we can get meaningful information to make a decision to the public. And that's kind of the goal of both these groups is again, not make any decisions at all, but to be able to assemble as quickly as possible the next couple of months the different information and factors that the citizenry is going to need to know if they're going to make a decision. Like for fire, I mean, that is going to come, actually it's going to come right down to the citizenry. If a fire district is in our future, the citizens are going to have to approve it. So it's something that we have to definitely get full involvement with the citizenry, and that, if that is the path they choose, or they want to at least make that choice. So yeah, there's nothing includes here wants to exclude anything involving the public in decision making. It's simply to be able to put the information together so that they can get the full picture. And again, it's up to the public safety working group, I guess, to say, people like Rich and Tanny and Victoria, to say, oh yeah, we'll just as soon keep the fire also and do those things. It's just going to make for more work for them. So maybe that's where it gets laid, Mayor.
Well, I had that discussion and decision come from the committee, then it would be more palatable. But that it went without the committee's involvement, that's not a good precedence to be setting for early on negotiations.
All right, Carol, go ahead.
Sorry about that. My concern is as a committee member, I know that it's gonna take a lot of time, and it's gonna probably take more time than we have now when we're meeting. But I think it's a well worth time to, and effort to put into. And my concern, because of historical issues that have happened before, I would really caution the council to do anything that's behind closed doors or have discussions behind with not involving people, the citizenry. I think the working group is willing to take both on. It's a lot of work, and I might be speaking out of turn, but I really think that it's important that we continue the work that we started and to be able to look at the two. When I heard the news of fire being taken out, I was aghast to the fact that we weren't even told ahead of time, and I could be wrong on what my role is in the working group, but I like to be involved in as much of the city as I can be in the group and to have a voice. And I think that it's important that we all have that.
Thank you, Carol. Tanny, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. We all serve at the pleasure of the council, and we understand that. And I'll just say that when I suggested that there was a group tasked to look at these contracts, breaking them apart and having 3 counselors work on it really wasn't kind of what I envisioned at that time. And I understand there's reasons for doing these things. But if we're going to break these apart, I think the committee should have been made aware of that. They should have been involved in that decision. And we're talking about past history, and I'll just let the cat out of the bag here. There's still a lot of people that are upset about what happened with the police years ago. And they're like, 4 counselors made that decision and yada, 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 yada. And now we're going to have 3 counselors make a decision about fire. And I mean, we might need to do that for some reason. I just don't know that that's really where we want to go, especially if we're going to ask the citizens to fund a fire district. We want to have as many people on board as we can, guys. I think that's the only way we can accomplish this. And I also definitely feel that fire and police are about as intertwined as you can get. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Tanny. I'm going to say this again, just so everybody can clearly hear it one more time. We're not making any decisions in either of these groups. No decisions are getting made. We are on a fact-finding mission. We're gathering information so the council can make a decision later on. So whether we split it apart or keep it together, there's no decisions that we're coming to. We're gathering information to supply it to council so council can make a decision in the form of a public meeting so we can move forward and come to a decision on what we're going to do for fire, emergency services, and police. So whether we decide to split this apart or keep it together, neither of those groups are going to make a decision. We're going to work with staff. We're going to work with other cities if we choose to. We're going to work with fire districts if we choose to. We're going to work with a consulting firm if we choose to gather information, not to create a decision-making scenario. Just so we're clear, I know that Tanny's concerned with that. Councilor Glantz brought that up in her first comment. Carol, you brought that up. Just so everybody understands, there's no decisions being made. Yes, it can create guidance based on the information that we're gathering. But again, we're gathering that information to take to council in a future council meeting, just so we're understanding and we're all on the same page. Council President Rima.
I would recommend, since we're consulting with the Public Safety Services Delivery Working Group now, and they seem willing to continue. with the work that they were originally assigned. I would prefer, instead of these two resolutions, that a resolution be brought back reconstituting the Public Safety Services Delivery Working Group. A mouthful, but reconstituting at the next council meeting, which is only a week away, and assign them the tasks of study and present to council recommendations regarding the delivery of law enforcement and fire services in Troutdale. I would prefer
Really
that
quick.
these two resolutions, and rather than try to fix this one up somehow, seems like we could put it off 1 week and have a correct resolution. That's what I would support at this point.
Okay. Council President Ridma, I hear you. Ed, I'm going to ask you a question. So,
Fair.
if Mr. Ed Trump, if so on the agenda, if we decide to move towards what Council President Ridma just suggested, is there a way now under Resolution 3? The title, a resolution reconstituting the ad hoc Public Safety Services Delivery Working Group. Now, under the resolution, in the body of the resolution, there's language in there that clearly separates police only under resolution number 3. So I'm sorry, under, agenda item number 3. Would it be better just to bring it back if we decide to, or can we just accept the resolution and add fire in there? No, we need to come back, don't we? I'm reading
Well,
this and talk.
You could,
Based on the title, it says just the
Yes.
public safety working group, but then the body of the resolution doesn't state anything about fire.
right, within the title on the agenda, you can do this. In order to change the resolution itself, I'm looking at it, and you could leave in section 1, because section 1 says that the membership and authority under the code is unchanged from the previous resolution. So you already have all of the authority that the group wants to exercise, it has. And the way I read this is this is a specific direction in the further sections 2, 3, 4, not 5, well, maybe 5, to focus more on the law enforcement than on the fire. It's actually in there to reconstitute it with all its prior authority. So if you were to adopt it even as written, and if the group wants to go rogue from what the city council was thinking about last week, and it would have all of its authority to do that, frankly.
Okay, thank you, Ed. So let's hold that in the back of our heads really quick. Let's get through more comments. Victoria, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I agree that we should keep it together and not make it 2 separate committees. We've done all this work so far. We know it's a lot of work. And
I may interrupt, Mr. Mayor. The second group is not a committee. It is specifically set up because a committee would fall under the public meetings laws. This is simply a couple of 3 council members talking to staff. That is one of the exemptions from what falls under the city council, under the public meetings laws now. So please, everybody take a step back and don't call that other thing a committee. It ain't.
Okay.
And frankly,
Thank you.
I'll change
now,
my
I will be
language. And
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just can't let that go on.
okay, I'll just say our 2 separate working groups. How's that? I'd
That's
rather
fine.
just have our 1 working group as we've had.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. I appreciate it. Counselor Caswell.
Yeah, I wanted to re-highlight what you said, Mayor Lauer, also about like that literally no decisions are being made and this is just a fact-finding, information gathering thing. I think, let's kind of all think about that for a second again. And I think it's really important that we keep in mind expediency. And that's why I think it is important that we have these two groups. And so we can just get this moving quickly because this is a really big deal. And the more we stall over like thinking about things like this, the more it puts this entire process behind. And I think that it's a really smart way, both just to get both done at the same time and to ask questions about, okay, what's this even going to be? And then we'll just have more information. Literally no decisions are being made. And I think that the faster we have some questions answered, the quicker we can do something with that information.
Thank you, Counselor Caswell. Ray Young, you got your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. The staff will do whatever you guys want us to do. We're going to be there supporting you, helping get through this whole process. This week and last week, I've done more things since the last council meeting to connect on fire and police issues to get us more information. So regardless of this resolution tonight or next week, I'm still pushing the issue forward behind the scenes to get information to help the citizens make the decision. But I think when I talk about the police and fire decision being different, they are both first responders. They wear uniforms. We need them to protect us from different threats out there. They are similar in that regards, but the process that we're entering into to make those decisions in some ways are very different. Primarily, the police decision is a general fund issue. What I mean by that is we need to decide what we want to buy. We need to decide what we can afford to buy, and then we need to decide who we're going to buy from. We've got options for all of those, and those are the very linear decision that's based pretty much on our pocketbook. The fire decision, while of course we pay fire currently out of the general fund, the fire decision is primarily a political decision, because the fire decision has to be made in cooperation with Wood Village, Fairview, Gresham, and even Fire District 10. We're all tied together in this party, and the problem is Gresham Fire is the only one that owns the hoses. And so the political conversation has already started with Gresham on that issue. And it has to be worked all together because the only practical way to provide that fire is through the existing fire department at Gresham. But second of all, a big piece of that fire equation has to do with the other political issue, which is the public's desire to want to join Fire District 10 or form a new fire district. That is absolutely a political decision and their property tax. And so we have to discuss, is that an option we want to take to the citizens? And that is definitely something politically that we have to present to the citizens fully, openly, fully transparent, and giving them all the benefits and detriments of that. And so it's in a lot of ways, fundamentally, the fire approach that we're going to have to take involves a number of different issues that the police issue does not involve. So that's what I mean by they are in some ways very different how we have to approach each of these decisions.
Thank you, Ray. Councilor White.
Yeah, I think, Ray, your last statement just kind of emphasized to me the importance of that citizen group, because that might not be the only option. And that citizen group is looking at all sorts of different options. They have a counselor on that. What are we calling it? I don't want to say committee. I almost said committee, but
Working.
have a counselor involved in that. The last time we had 3 counselors work was on charter amendments. It was during an election year, and it became very political, and it didn't go over very well at all. And I don't see why we can't get this ad hoc committee or I said committee, sorry. This group to come up with a broad approach and maybe have a list of 3 options that they like. And if they're not doing police and fire, it's like the right hand's not going to know what the left hand's doing. And it seems like there's been a big effort to end this group. This is like we've had a few times where we tried to kill the group in the past. And I think having 1 counselor on there is enough. The other problem with having 3 counselors is if I want to sit in on the meeting, I can't. Because it'd be a quorum. And they're not public meetings, so there's no way other than being present to find out what that group is actually working on. And, I've asked Ray several times, and I brought it up in our council concerns that we should look at where what were the ideas 10 years ago. And there were some good ones. There was even a PowerPoint. And to my knowledge, that group has not seen any of that work. I feel like staff and the mayor and a few counselors already have a plan that the rest of us don't know about. So the optics are pretty bad on that. And I think, and you got to remember the police bond where we built that police station, it wasn't passed by council and mayor. It was passed by a working group of citizens that got that through, or we would have never gotten it, because they're the ones that ultimately are going to be paying the bill on this. So they should ultimately have a lot of say in how this is going to shake down.
Counselor One.
Yeah, I just want to say that I don't think there is any preconceived notions or any ulterior motives whatsoever. And I don't know who that is pointed to, but take a little bit of offense to having an idea that we already have something in mind when I have zero idea about what any of these things cost, entail, or how they would affect the people of Troutdale. And so I personally already feel like this public safety service working group is already behind the ball in terms of getting us the information that we need to go in to give the staff and the people that make the contracts and the lawyers and everything to make these things up. I think we're already behind the ball. I don't think we have any of the information that we should already have to try to seek out the necessary bids that we need to go to the table with either Gresham or whoever else with adequate information. And so I feel like they haven't done their job. And my job is to hold everybody accountable so that the citizens get what they need, that our tax money is wisely spent, and to get the citizens the information that they would need to either elect to join a fire district or to continue with what we have. And so that we don't have that information yet, I feel like we need to expedite, just like a few of us have said, expedite getting the information to the council so we as a whole can make the best educated decision for the people. And I feel like if we do not do that soon, I feel like we are not doing our jobs, and I would hate that. And just to speak to the people who feel like whatever happened in the past, I recognize that those are real issues. And look, I'm new to this council. I was newly elected, and I hope that I would be given the opportunity by being newly elected to do what's right for the people. I am also a citizen. We are all citizens, and I feel like we all want our money, our tax money, our city to be the best that it can be. And so I want us to keep that in mind when we're making these decisions and thinking about everything and taking everything into consideration. Thanks.
Councilor Glantz. Oh,
I agree with both Counselor Caswell and Counselor One that we do have a lot of work and we need to do it as quickly as possible. But given the political nature that we might be under with the possibility of a fire district, if we still want to have two groups, why don't we switch it to where the group that's in public handles fire and the counselor group does the work on police? And that way the most politically obvious is still, totally open and visible in most cases. And while I agree that I doubt anything's gonna happen, perception's reality. I mean, that's why they call it optics in politics. It's not necessarily what you're really doing at what it, can be inferred that you might be doing. And if we want to be able to get something like this passed in an area that hates, more taxes, I think we need to do everything we can to help ourselves.
Councilor Ribma.
The Public Safety Services Working Group was constituted according to the resolution in item 3 over a year ago. They issued their final report on December 12th, 2023, saying there's no easy answers, basically, is a shorthand way. We discussed this and decided that we would ramp up their work essentially in this resolution. It's just on fire, just on police, but it would be a standing progress report as a regular agenda item starting February 27th, 2024. And I think they're saying they're willing to do it. They're willing to take it on. They have worked hard on it up till now. I do not want to go forward with splitting up. We're going to lose some of the institutional memory they already have on both these subjects. However, I would agree with Councilor Glantz that if we're going to have 3 counselors working with staff on something that has to go to a vote if we're going to form a district, it is having non-public meetings and just a subcommittee of the council is not the way I would want to go. I would not favor doing that. I still like the idea I floated, which is let's reconstitute the ad hoc working group and have them continue with the charge they were given before, but just ramp it up by requiring that there be a standing report at every council meeting beginning February 27th, 2024. They say they're willing to do it. They're citizens. They've been working hard on this. I think they've done a great job, and we need to just ratchet it up a little bit more.
Okay, Councilor One.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. The Public Safety Services Delivery Working Group, is that a public meeting that anybody can join and listen into?
Yes.
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 Okay, thanks.
All right, any other comments before we open this up to public comment? Councilor White.
Having 3 counselors do a fact-finding mission for fire, we had one of the universities, I forget which one, did a in-depth study on that very subject and answered a lot of questions. But within that ad hoc group, we have Rich Allen, who was he was on council then, and he was our liaison for the police negotiation team. And then Tanny Staffison was on the negotiation team for fire. And we had a pretty successful result with fires during that time. We got a good deal out of Gresham. So, and Tanny's familiar with all that history, and I know Rich is too. And they know the options. There's only so many options that we can do. So it's not that complicated. A lot of the work's been done, and it's been done by the very people that are willing to do it a second time. So I just wanted to state that.
Yeah, I would argue that it is very complicated, and it's a big decision coming up. So keep that in mind when we're moving forward. I appreciate that, Counselor White. All right, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Public comments open on agenda item number 3, a resolution reconstituting the ad hoc Public Safety Services Delivery Working Group Committee. If you wish to make public comment, unmute yourself, raise your hand, and state your name and city of residence for the record.
Sorry,
Tanny.
I would like to, oh, go ahead.
Oh, sure. Let's let Tanny go, and then I'll call right back on you.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Mayor Lauer. Good evening, councilors. I would just like to say, being a member of this group, 2 things. One, if we were going to restructure it in this way, it would have been good if the group was involved. I think you've heard from a number of the members of the group tonight that they would like to continue the work. And a couple of things I just like to point out, and these aren't anybody's fault, but the comment was made that the group hasn't done their job. And personally, I kind of find that a little insulting, almost, because the group was tasked, the recommendation was made at the budget committee meetings. The group was tasked, I believe, in January, and the group met for the first time in August, and the group wasn't to make any distinct recommendations. So I guess the question I would have is, what exactly did this group not do, or what mission did it not fulfill for the city? I guess that would be my question to you. And I do think, whether we like it or not, I think history plays into everything that goes on. And the only way we ever get better is to look at what happened in the past, learn from it, and try to do a better job going forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Shirley Prickett, go ahead.
Thank you for hearing me out. I agree with most of what everybody says, but again, like you say, perception is what we look at. Outside of the residents look at things like, they don't always see what you guys are doing or hear what you are doing until the end. And if you expect people to vote or to agree on adding more money or to our tax base, is going to be hard, because if they don't see it and understand it ahead of time, they will vote no on it for sure. So to keep this committee, I think both should be on the same, both fire and police are intertwined and should be kept in one, as one with this ad hoc working group. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilcox.
Thank you, Mayor Lauer. Paul Wilcox, Troutdale. I haven't heard exactly how if there is a council subgroup formed, what their meetings would look like, but I did want to respond to Councilor White. It sounded like there was an implication that they were meeting behind closed doors when the subgroup of councilors did the charter review. Those were public meetings because I attended them. So I just want to make the point that those are public meetings.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Counselor White.
Yeah, I
Oh,
believe,
Glenn, let me make sure that we're done with public comment and then we'll open it back up to counselors. Anybody else wishes to make public comment? Okay, I think that was everybody anyways. All right, I'm going to close public comment now. Counselor White, go ahead.
yeah, I believe, the resolution is stating that these would not be public meetings. Is that right, Ed?
That's correct. Right now, any one of you, any two of you, any three of you can go to Ray Young's office, knock on his door, and if he has the time, he can talk to you about anything that you want. All four of you will then have to be careful not to tell any other council members what was going on. You could tell the newspaper, but you can't tell the other councilors what was going on, because that might then be a serial meeting. So you understand, this didn't really change anything from what is already allowable. I'm kind of sitting here fulminating a little bit, just because this is, to my mind, not a lot of substance to this. Any three of you can go do it tonight if Ray's willing to invite you to his house out in the icy Damascus area. But anyway, that's all I have to say about it. This would not be a committee. It's something that's already allowed.
Thank you, Ed. Counselor Ridma.
But the resolution at item number 4 identifies a specific, I mean, the mayor can pick a specific set of counselors who will be doing the fact finding. Yes, we can always do it, but that's what's wrong with this.
Yes, but Counselor, if I may point out what's the rest of it, is that it's to inform the staff, the city manager, so that he can come to council with a recommendation. It's not
Right.
so that counselors do. They may just completely disagree, but it's so staff can do it. That
Right,
was
yeah, I understand, Ed, that it was done with care so that it doesn't violate the serial meetings laws and anything else. But the thing is, it's all being done behind closed doors. I don't like it. I don't like the idea of doing it that way. I resurrect my idea of allowing the public safety working group to continue with the mandate they have. After all, the subgroup of council, in the resolution, it says the recommendations of the public safety working group regarding fire services presented to council on December 12th shall guide the possible options. It's already piggybacking on work the group has already done. The group is willing to keep doing it. I think it'll end up being we'll end up wasting time. I recommend,
All right.
I urge the council not to go this way, that we can reconstitute the group. They've all expressed an interest in continuing. They've worked on police and fire before. We are ramping up the frequency of the reports that they're going to get specifically, or we can, at least if we pass the agenda item number 3. And that is the quickest way to get to an answer, I think, rather than have 3 counselors who don't necessarily know anything about the options. I mean, I'll also say that it is complicated. I downloaded the 2014 report from Portland State, 3 Cities Fire and Emergency Services Project, and it's 100 pages long, and it's available. And a lot of it's complicated, but a lot of the work has been done, with the options, and they haven't changed since then. Anyway.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Counselor One.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Tanny real quick. I don't think that I was specifically one saying that the members didn't do their job. Whether you weren't directed to or that you started in August and not in January, I think that you guys did the best that you could do with what the time you were given, but I feel like the time we still need to be farther ahead. That being said, regardless of what we do, this work needs to be done. And I think that however we decide that work needs to be done the best way, the majority of the way, like this work needs to be done quick and fast. And I agree with, I think something that Ed said is that this is kind of we shouldn't be having this much argument over that. We need this information, and the quickest way to get this information to us, I feel like, is to split it up into let the most amount of people deal with it. And anyways, I just feel like we needed to keep that in mind. That's all.
So, Ed and Ray, what we can do, well, we need to go ahead with agenda item number 3, a resolution reconstituting the ad hoc public safety services delivery working group. Ed, if we hit a stalemate on whether or not this moves forward, what I don't want to do, I don't want to end up in a scenario tonight where we kill everything. So I'd rather get to a scenario where we can pass and move forward, and so we can start diving into this as quickly as possible. And 2, not move this to and kick this can down the road to the next meeting, even though the next meeting is next week. I'd rather not do that. So
How about this suggestion? You have 2 options with each of the resolutions. With the resolution in item number 3, you could either adopt it as written. It reconstitutes the board and this committee until July 2025. And then you can say that that is what is in section 1. The items in sections 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are, 6 is a reporting measure. So it would apply to anything they talk about. You can either leave in 2, 3, 4, and 5 or not. You could either have them stricken or not. If you don't strike them, they are simply giving some guidance to what the city council would like to hear back from the group, at least as one of their priority matters. That's one that you can do that either way, strike it or not. With respect to the second one, because you could adopt it as written, and the mayor would appoint 3 council members, or you could change it to say some other selection method, or you could not adopt it at all. And the same thing goes with the number 3. Okay?
Right, and then go was if we get through 3 and then get to 4, we have a choice not to adopt 4 and move forward from there. Okay.
Right.
Ray.
Yeah, I mean, if you adopt 3 as written, I don't think that's inconsistent with anything anybody said tonight.
Right. And Ray, if anybody wants to, if any council member wants to go talk to you about fire or police service, they're still welcome to do that. I assume your door is always open.
Yes, and then at next meeting, I can reword number 4 so that it's worded exactly as number 3, except we insert the fire services investigation and leave out the 3 counselors and just assign it to the public safety working group, just like item number 3 does. So we can put that plus the current version of 4 together, and council can choose the current version of 4 or the version of 4 that looks exactly like 3, sending it the fire also to the police next meeting. Does that make sense?
It seemed a little convoluted. Let me ask a question really quick, Ed, and then I'll get to Counselor One. Ed, if we decide to take a vote on agenda item number 3 as written, and we vote it down, because even though as written in this agenda and with the attached resolution, it says yes, but it kind of doesn't say no, or it doesn't say yes about fire. If we vote that down, can we do another vote and then amend and strike everything except for section 1 in resolution number 3? Or can that not happen because we voted it down to begin with?
But my personal preference would be is if you were to do it and leave in 1 and 6, 7, and 8. The reporting, the expiration date in July 25, and then it takes immediate effect. But yes, you would do it through this mechanism. One of the people who is on the prevailing side, if it dies, it would have to be one of the people voting no, would have to move for reconsideration. And it would be brought up at the end of the meeting, which is right about after this thing goes down. And you could be reconsidered with the amendment. Yes.
Okay, Counselor One.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. In reference to what Counselor Glantz said earlier, she was concerned that I feel like the people that are already on the committee, they will both potentially not be here at the end of their term. So keeping that in mind, if we were to, adopt this, do we need to add members to the group or change members of the group to, have some continuancy,
Yeah. So part of my role is to appoint counselors to groups. And I'll tell you, we're not going to do that right now, but I will promise you that I will take into consideration what Counselor Glantz said, and I will make my appointments accordingly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Ray.
Yeah, just on that point, one, if these groups are not done with all their work by January of next year, when new people may be sworn in, we have really failed. So I'm trusting and assuming we're not going to need to worry about the next generation of whoever takes those roles. But that's number one. Number two, number 3, I think you could still pass all of item number 3 tonight, because that doesn't exclude giving fire to the Public Safety Working Group. And at least it resolves that you've sent the police to them and got that part of it done. And then I guess the council's gonna have to tell us how they want the fire to be decided. Is it the Public Safety Working Group or some other format like we proposed in 4? So.
Yeah, Counselor Ritma, go ahead.
I'm willing to try a motion.
Let's do that.
I heard what you said, Ray, but I'm going to try it a little hybrid here. I move adoption of a resolution reconstituting the ad hoc Public Safety Services Delivery Working Group as amended as follows. The motion, or excuse me, the resolution in the packet being amended as follows. Sections 2, 3, 4, and 5 are omitted. So the resolution will have section 1, 6, 7, and 8 only as set forth in our packet. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Counselor Glantz. Sarah, when you're ready, please. Actually, really quick, Sarah, is there any discussion? Just make sure everybody understands the motion on the table. Okay, Sarah.
Okay. Counselor Wittrin.
Yes.
Counselor Glantz.
Yes.
Counselor Ritma.
Yes.
Counselor Caswell.
Can you call me last?
I'll come back.
I would
Counselor
say,
one.
Sarah, just point of order, I would say she's in the order of this voting order. Counselor Caswell is next.
Oh, it was because I was trying to figure out what exactly I missed when the discussion. So I was trying to look at what exactly we're even talking about. I'm just confused.
Okay. If you don't feel comfortable and waiting until the end of the vote isn't necessarily going to offer more discussion, if you don't feel comfortable with vote, I would abstain from voting. That's
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to
opinion.
pull up the I was just trying to pull it up on my computer. I'll abstain then.
Okay.
Okay.
Counselor one,
No.
Mayor Lauer,
Yes.
Counselor White.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Counselor Ritma.
And my preference would be not to take up agenda item number 4.
Let's run through it, and I want to have public comment, and then we'll decide if there's a motion to move it forward. If not, then we'll.
Right. The proper way to kill it would be to either move to postpone indefinitely, move to table, or something like that.
Oh, I think it's okay to go ahead and if Randy, if you want to have a discussion, I won't have any problem with that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dave. All right, everybody, let's move on to agenda item number 4, resolution creating a council study group.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Usually the recorder states what the vote was and whether it passed. We should give Sarah that opportunity.
Oh, sure. Sorry, I thought I slipped that in there. It did pass, 5 in favor, 1 abstained, and 1 no.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. A resolution creating a council study group to assist staff in determining options for future fire and emergency service to protect Troutdale. Mr. Ray Young, let's just go through the spiel, and then we'll get to whether or not we need a robust discussion on this item.
Right. I think we've discussed it enough, Mayor. I'm not going to add much more than what I'm taking so far from a majority of council is that the duties listed in 4, they would rather go to the Public Safety Working Group, which has already been now reconstituted. So.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, sir. Any comments or further questions from council? All right. Any public comment on agenda item number 4? Now's the time. If you want to make public comment on agenda item number 4, go ahead and raise your hand, unmute yourself, and state your name and city of residence for the record. All right, not seeing anybody. Public comment is closed. If there's no other further discussion, I will, Councilor Ritma.
Well, I was going to make a motion to, what were the options, Ed?
You can postpone to a date certain, postpone indefinitely, or table.
Oh, all right. Well, I move that we postpone this indefinitely.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Glantz. Let's take roll call, Sarah.
Sorry about that. I had to catch up on my typing there. Counselor Wittrin,
No.
Counselor Glantz,
Yes.
Counselor Ritma,
Yes.
Counselor Caswell,
No.
Counselor 1,
No.
Mayor Lauer,
Yes.
Counselor White.
Yes.
It passes 4-3.
Okay.
Is it
All right,
okay
everybody.
if I move to adjourn?
It is okay.
I
Second.
move we adjourn.
A second.
Seconded by Councilor 1. All in favor, signify.
Point of order, I think we need to do council concerns or is it because it's a special meeting, we don't need to?
Correct.
Yeah,
Special.
that's not on the agenda.
I did have a council concern is why I brought it up, but I understand.
Let's save it for next week and we'll make sure we hit it at the end of next council meeting next week. All in favor of the motion to adjourn in the second by Counselor One, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. All right, everybody, we're adjourned. I'll see you everybody next Tuesday evening.
Thank you.
Evening.
Stay warm.